Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a film that I think is on a lot of people's most anticipated lists for the year, and that is Jon M. Chu's Wicked, or Wicked Part 1, because this is actually a two-part adaptation of the Broadway play by the same name. The second part will be releasing 1 year from this November. I want to preface this review by making it clear that I have not seen the Broadway show, nor do I have any familiarity with the songs or the story here. This is basically my introduction to Wicked. Although I have seen The Wizard of Oz, I feel like most people have. I watched that multiple times when I was younger. It's been a while though, so granted my memory isn't as fresh when it comes to that film. I was excited to go into this relatively blind, and I'm also a fan of the director who also did In the Heights, which is a musical that I quite enjoyed. I'm going to keep the synopsis relatively limited because I think most people that are going to see this at least know the general premise. This is essentially the backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West, also known as Elphaba, played by Cynthia Erivo. The movie kicks off in an epilogue of sorts in which we are given some narration by Ariana Grande's character, Galinda, and after she's asked by a random side character to explain the history behind the Wicked Witch, she delves into the story, which we then see play out in real time. We follow Elphaba as she joins this prestigious magic school, meets Galinda, forms this unlikely friendship with her despite the fact that they have many differences and initially quite dislike each other because of many things that just put them at odds. Elphaba is often discriminated against because of her green skin color. There's some pretty heavy undertones that I think you can decipher pretty easily in terms of that element. She also doesn't get a lot of love from her father, who shuns her for the same reason. Meanwhile, Galinda is loved by everybody. She's showered in riches and items that she doesn't need, commodities. First and foremost, this is a musical, and I'm happy to report that for the most part, it works as a musical. I really, truly enjoyed the songs in this. I think some of them are definitely better than others. There's probably like 24 of them total because the film is 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is a detail that I neglected to mention earlier. And it's crazy to think that I think the musical itself is only like 3 hours. Whereas when you combine parts 1 and 2, we're gonna have what, like 6 hours total of film to watch? That's a lot. And because I haven't seen the play, I can't comment on what they've added or what kind of creative liberties they've taken. With that said, as an outsider who hasn't seen the Broadway show, I enjoyed the songs. I think some of them are very lively in terms of the dynamic camera movement that the director uses. You know who does deserve a lot of praise? Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. They're two very different characters, yet I think they both put forward excellent performances. I felt the chemistry. I think they have great comedic timing together. If you've seen some of her other work, you'll know that Erivo has an excellent singing voice, despite the fact that she's become a bit of a PR nightmare with all of that shit in which she flipped out over a fan-edited poster. With that said, there were a number of things that pulled me out of this film experience pretty much constantly, and it got into this cycle that I think a lot of musicals get into, in which you're enthralled by a song, a musical sequence, and then as soon as it ends, you just feel less invested and you're less immersed in the experience. And I think the cause of that feeling that I kept having after songs would end is, for one thing, the drab visuals. I was shocked by how bad some of the VFX in this movie turned out to be. And looking at behind the scenes stuff, I can tell that they used a lot of real physical sets. So I don't know if they're overlaying filters on top of the film or if there's just a lot of digital tomfoolery going on in the background. But there are so many scenes in which the backlighting is terrible. There are obvious green screens that totally distort the foreground and you're unable to see what's happening. Like when you finally see her pick up that broom and take flight, it's supposed to be this big epic emotional moment. And I was just caught up in how bad the visuals were that were bringing it to life, even though I liked the acting performance and I was moderately engaged with the character. Another big problem, and once again, this could be just me coming into the story as an outsider, there are so many things in this film and side characters that just add nothing to the story, and I feel like maybe they were supposed to. For instance, Michelle Yeoh, who plays a pretty integral character, especially moving into the third act, she's just kind of there, and she's given very little to work with as an actress who we know can deliver phenomenal work. I would say the first 2 hours or so are very deliberately paced, and then all of a sudden it takes a sharp left turn pretty much from the moment that Elphaba goes to meet with the Wizard of Oz. And once it takes that sharp left turn, these last 40 minutes feel extremely rushed. They introduce so many new ideas, conspiracies regarding the talking animals, and if you've seen the show, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, and Maybe I'm just missing the point, but there is so much that is left unexplained, and that's one of the trappings that you encounter when you split your film into two parts. Don't get me wrong, sometimes splitting a film into multiple parts can work extremely well if there are good points where you can bookend a story and yet still leave it open for continuation. And they do kind of do that here, but again, there's just so much fluff, like this generic love interest character who gets to do absolutely nothing as the film progresses, and I expected him to be a bigger part of the story. It just came off as extremely messy to me, and every time the characters would stop singing, I was waiting for them to start singing again. This is kind of the opposite of Joker Folie à Deux, in which I think most people couldn't wait for the characters to stop singing. For me, Wicked was at its best when it was being a musical, when it was trying to give the audience the experience that viewers get when they go to see the Broadway show, but obviously in the format of a feature film. Maybe this is just another one of those trappings that you encounter by default when you try to adapt a play to a motion picture, but I also just felt a general lack of emotional investment in the characters. Once again, Cynthia Erivo is great as Elphaba, but I didn't really feel much for her in those triumphant moments that are supposed to elicit such a reaction out of the audience, and people in my theater were eating it up. I think this is going to be a big crowd pleaser. I'm sure it'll kill at the box office, and no doubt you'll probably love it. If you're excited for it, I wouldn't get your hopes down just because I didn't love it as much as you probably will. Oh God, I'm shuddering even imagining what the comment section on this video is going to be like. I'm sure I'm going to catch some backlash for this one. I'm going to give Wicked 3 stars. Guys, I'm not calling it a bad film. I'm giving it a thumbs up, just a very mild one. I think you should definitely hit the theaters to check it out if you're a fan of the material, if you're excited for it, because I don't think it's going to let you down in the way that it let me down. As somebody who maybe has higher expectations than some people, I was just shocked and appalled by how bad the visuals were, and I thought the story was kind of messy. It still sticks the landing for the most part, and I think maybe this is one of those cases where the film could improve on itself when part 2 comes out next year. However, I must say I'm not sure how I feel about the Oscar buzz. Like, yes, Ariana Grande delivers an excellent performance in this film. She's funny, she's great. But is this really a character and a performance that demands the type of material that we see in the Academy Awards? Is that where their standards are right now? Like, you can have an epic performance from a character in a movie like Hereditary from Toni Collette that doesn't get considered for nomination because it's a horror film, yet I guess people are pushing for a comedy musical fantasy film to get a nomination. With each year that passes, I care less and less about what the Academy thinks. But those are my thoughts on Wicked, so be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of it if you do see it. Am I being harsh? Be honest if you think so. While you're at it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.